Hi, friend. Welcome back to another episode of the Let's Talk About That podcast. Let me set the scene for you. We are hanging in an Eno on a Friday afternoon. It's about 12:45 and it's a beautiful day. It's a little windy, not a cloud in the sky. Beautiful. I just had a Zaxby salad and it was delicious. I got my nails done with Aunt Jill. They are a subtle pink. I do have a gender reveal tomorrow, and I am the one that knows the gender, and I'm super excited about it. I was 1000% convinced it was a girl, but it's a boy, and I can say that because this episode won't come out until after. But I did get pink, and I told her that I was going to get pink for Valentine's Day, and I told her that before I opened the envelope. She also knew that I thought it was a girl, so we will all just be so surprised. Anyways, today I wanted to talk about something that is very much so a huge part of my life. Um, School. Ick. I know. But um as I mentioned in the intro video, I am a graduate student, but I do it all online. I know that's crazy to some people to like do something that is like super hard online, but that wasn't originally my plan. So I just wanted to talk about how I got to where I'm at and the journey to getting to where I am, where it all started, and all that stuff, and how the Lord was just in it from the beginning. So let's talk about that. I do also, if you're watching on the video, have a podcast notebook now, so I can be a little bit more prepared. There were some technical difficulties at the beginning of the podcast where my notes were not accessible to me, so I almost had to wing it, which was not the plan. But we've gotten our crap together. So today I wanted to talk about going to grad school and how I ended up doing it online, what I'm in grad school for, a little bit about that because I'm all about advocating for my profession, but also just the journey to get here was not easy and not fun. And honestly, we're here, so we're going to keep on going. Do the best we can. I am in graduate school for occupational therapy. I'm in a master's program at the University of St. Augustine for health sciences. My school is a postgraduate school, which means that it only has graduate level curriculum. So basically, it has occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language pathology, and nursing. And then it has master's and doctorate level of some of those. So there's no like undergrad there. It's a very small, intimate professional school, and I love it. I originally heard about it. I originally heard about it at the OTPT club at Auburn University, which is where I went for undergrad. And yeah, it actually is pretty full circle because I just spoke at that club a couple weeks ago about the University of St. Augustine. So that was really cool. So why I chose OT is not like a lot of other people. I feel like a lot of people are like, well, my grandma or my sister or I needed OT like for different reasons and yada yada yada. But for me, it was I went to Auburn thinking that I wanted to do engineering because I liked math and science. My dad liked math and science. Auburn had such a great engineering program, and like I was like, why not? Let's see how it goes. My brother also did engineering, and I just was like, that just makes sense to me that I would do that. But I got to calculus, and I just absolutely could not do it. So I went to the Career Center at Auburn, and I said, I can't do math any further. I can't do any harder math than I'm already done doing. So I need you to find me a degree that I can do in classes that I can take that don't require me to have to take another math class. So I took some aptitude tests, about $20 worth. They charged it to my e-bill. And it was really cool. It was like a test where it was like based on your interest and personality and strengths, and these people's personalities, strengths, and interests, and then their satisfaction at their job, you would be most satisfied at this job. It was more of like a satisfy something, whatever that word is. It was more of like how much you'd be satisfied at a job, not necessarily like what you'd be qualified to do, which was kind of interesting. but it either said bartending or occupational therapy. And my dad was like, I'm not paying for you to go out of state tuition at Auburn University to do bartending. So my mom got me set up with an occupational therapist back at home, and I job shadowed over a break and absolutely fell in love with it. My mom got me connected with a hand therapist, and I was like, hand therapy? Like, that's gonna be so dumb. Like, I'm not gonna like this. Literally walked out the first day at lunch. I was supposed to be there for 2 weeks. That Monday at lunch, I was in love with it. I was like, this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Like, the Lord just so clearly was like, this is it. We're doing this. And I was like, absolutely, we are. This is great. So I was like on fire for it. I was super pumped. I set up some other job shadowing opportunities from people that my dad like went to school with or something in Huntsville, and I ended up getting an opportunity to job shadow at the hospital in Huntsville where my grandma worked, which was super cool. Did not enjoy that experience, so hospital setting is not for me. I actually had a big freak out in the parking garage when I was trying to leave because I couldn't find my car fast enough, and I just hated it so much I just couldn't get out of there fast enough. And I felt so bad for my grandma. She was so excited. She was on the porch waiting for me. She was like, "Oh my gosh, how'd it go?" And I just looked at her and I was like, "Granby." Before I could even get the rest of the words out, I just started crying. And she just felt so bad for me because she was so excited. She knew how excited I had been about the hand therapy, and oh my goodness, it was just emotional. But it was a good experience because I still loved OT. I just didn't like being in the hospital. I'd never had any experience in the hospital before that. Like, my grandma had been in the hospital a couple times before, but it was always like my parents made it like a happy experience. We were like, we get to go see Granby. It was never like a sad, like bad thing, I guess, because I was so young. And I'm super grateful that I didn't have a hospital experience before, but that was just not my thing. Then, fast forward, I job shadow at a school system here near Auburn, and it was really cool. I got to see a lot of different things because kids are so different versus like hand therapy. A lot of it was also different, but I guess at the time my brain just wasn't like in an OT lens per se, like looking at it. And it was just like, oh, this is super cool. And like, I really like this. And I can't even tell you why I liked it, I guess, because it's been a few years, but I just remember the Lord so clearly being like, this is what you're doing for the rest of your life. And I think that was what I was pumped up about. And that place just like showed me that. But with kids, it was like every kid's different. They're developing differently. They're in different stages of development. And it was just like super cool. And there were kids that like just did not have a good home life. And so getting to be that person for them to love on them and give them that one-on-one time that they don't get in the classroom with like 20 plus kids and one teacher, and like getting just to see them be super excited when they accomplish things was super cool. I then applied to 7 schools. I got an interview to 3. I was waitlisted to one of those, did not get into the other, and then got into St. Augustine. So I didn't get into 6 out of the 7 schools. I was waitlisted to one eventually. I just accepted my spot at St. Augustine. But it was such a God thing, and I look back now and realize that because originally I was going in person. So I got accepted in February of 2021, and I was graduating in May of 2021. So it was like very much, okay, wherever you get in, like in the next 6 months, that's where you're going, because I was going to start in the summer. And so as soon as I found out, I was like, sweet, let's go. Well, I'd been dating my husband now for about 6 months, and we already knew at this point that we were getting married. We knew before we even started dating that we were going to get married because I had set those expectations. I told the Lord that the next person I date, I'm going to marry, and I'm going to wait for him to like make that clear for me. And he did. So Kobe was on board, I guess, because here we are now, and there we were. But anyways, I was dating Kobe for about 6 months at the time, and he was always super supportive and just like, whatever you want to do, like, I'm going to support you. And I was the same, but it always felt like, okay, well, I got accepted to my school first, which means now that we're going to apply for your grad schools, we're going to apply based on where I'm going. And he was down for that, and I also was down for that, and it was like very much felt like a mutual agreement. And so we were looking at schools. For those of you who don't know, St. Augustine is about 30 minutes south of Jacksonville, Florida, which is on the east coast of Florida. And so we were looking at schools that were kind of like in North Florida, close to Jacksonville, like Valdosta, Georgia, South Georgia area. And then we were just gonna like live in between and figure it out or do long distance, but we didn't want to do like longer than what we were already doing, which was 2 hours. And then we were trying to figure out logistics because he's going to school to be an accountant, and the place that you take the CPA exams in is like the state that you get your license in, and some license will like transfer state to state, but some won't. And because Florida doesn't have some sort of tax something, then if he got his license in Florida, then he was going to have to do it all over again, like all these other tests or like something to get his license in Georgia or Alabama. And we knew he didn't want to live in Florida. I knew that I always wanted to live in Alabama, but he wasn't quite on board with that yet. So I was like trying to be supportive of like, okay, yeah, we might one day live in Georgia where our family is and all this stuff. And so it wasn't smart for him to get his license and his degree in Florida. So long story short, one day we were coming back from church, and he just like looks at me and he's like, I just feel the Lord telling me that we need to raise our kids in Auburn, and like I just feel called to be here and be here with you. And I was like, well, again, we're still dating, but when it comes to a relationship, when you're that emotionally invested and that committed to each other, their calling is your calling, whether it's the Lord speaking directly to both of you or not. Like when Covey is being called somewhere, like I have to say yes to that too. So I was like, well, I can't not be here then. Like, if the Lord is saying that we're supposed to be here and you're being called here, and this is where we're supposed to raise our kids, and this is where you're supposed to be, then like, why am I going to Florida in 3 or 4, like in 6 months? And I felt peace about it, which was also something that is so important to recognize now, that like the Lord was so in that moment, because I just knew that what he was saying was true and that I needed to listen to that, and that he was genuinely being called to Auburn, and I was being called to stay because he was being called to come, and that meant I shouldn't leave. So a couple other things were going on. Every time I looked at housing, it just felt really like icky and nerve wracking and like unsettling, and I'd try to tell myself that it was just anxiety of somewhere new and like in a place that I was kind of familiar with, because I had like some family friends down there, and like I had soccer tournaments down there when I was younger. But like when I was at Auburn, I knew like a handful of people that were already here when I got here, and really good family friends that were here, that lived here, that I was really comfortable with and like felt safe with, and did not have that in St. Augustine. So I tried to convince myself that that's what it was. And so, anyways, fast forward to 3 weeks later, I'm like trying to tell my dad that, okay, I'm about to have to like do this online. And when I say it was such a God thing that I got into St. Augustine, that was the only program out of the 7 that I applied for that had a flex program. The flex program being like the option to do it online. So that's what I did. I called my dad and I was like, look, Dad, I know that like this is not going to be a good conversation, but I just need to tell you that I have to stay in Auburn and I have to do this online. Like the Lord's calling Covey here, and that's just not something I can argue with. And my dad's a believer, I guess, but like not really. He grew up in the church, but for him, a calling is like a quote unquote gut feeling, or like something that I just really want to do and passionate about, but not necessarily what it actually is, like the Holy Spirit in you speaking to you about what you are called to do and like your purpose in that situation. So he did not take it well. And basically, that conversation ended with, if you're going to do this, you're going to be financially on your own. And that was scary for me to be 20 years old and being told that if I go to graduate school online and stay in Auburn, like I'm being cut off, which, like, fair, but at the same time, like, the child in me that was like, my dad's always supposed to protect me, it's like he was teaching me so much in that. And it really made me think critically about, okay, I'm making this decision and these are the repercussions. And like, I really need to know that this is worth it and this is what the Lord's calling me to. Because if it's not, then I'm making this decision that's not right. But if I know that the Lord is in this, then all those consequences are worth it. And they're not consequences, they are just circumstances that are happening because I'm saying yes to the Lord. And hindsight being 2020, like 1000% was worth it and all for the Lord. And I can see Him in all those details now. And so I'm so glad that one, that Covey like included me in that, but also that he helped me be so faithful with him in that. So I call my admissions advisor and I'm like, look, what are the chances that I can switch to the flex program, and what are the chances that I get in, and like all these things like all over again. And she's like, oh no, like I just needed to tell you that, you won't start in the summer, you'll start in the fall. We don't start flex programs in the summer, and yada 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 and all this and that. And she was like, but like I can just switch you over and you'll have the confirmation email by the end of the day. It's like, okay, I hear you. So that's what happened. And also that was such a blessing that we didn't start until the fall. And my dad was like, I'm not going to financially support you. So I was like, I got to get a job. And I applied to a couple places, but the job that I found was such a blessing. And I'm still there now. And talking about this is just such a reminder that the job that I do have is such a blessing, and like was in that season. So anyway, so I got this job in March, like literally 10 days after I switched to the flex program. The Lord was so faithful in providing that for me. And I was able to save so much money working from March to September before I started going to school and before I was financially independent. And that was like such a blessing, because I remember like being so grateful that I had the opportunity to save money and prepare for that time. And the Lord just like prepared me so well for that spiritually too. And then Covey and I got engaged in November and got married that next April. So without those 7 months of me working and just saving all that money, like we would not be where we are today. Like I just think about that so much, of how grateful I was for that. But that allowed me and Covey to have some confidence in like our finances getting married, because the Lord gave us that time, and Covey stewarded that time too really well. But I feel like that's kind of his story to tell when he's on here. But anyway, so I started the flex program in September, and it was great for a little bit. I was like super excited about it. But like the first semester was like anatomy, it was a research class, it was like not really like hands-on occupational therapy. It was like the foundational classes, which are so necessary, but as someone who was like so just on fire for occupational therapy, to like shut off that for a minute just to like learn like the nitty gritty muscles, nerves, veins, blood, all this like just anatomy was like super intimidating. And for those of you who are in school with me, first of all, don't judge me, but I got an email that I was about to fail out of class. Like I was about to fail out of school on my first term, and I was so embarrassed. I was so disappointed in myself for even getting that far and not stewarding that promise well from the Lord. And I remember calling Covey and just being like, Covey, like what's going to happen if I fail out? Like we have all these plans and like blah blah blah. And that's just stupid to like be so fearful. But also in that moment, like I was so worried. Like I did not want to disappoint anybody. I didn't want anybody to say I told you so. I didn't want to like lose all the momentum that I had gained from like the experience of applying and getting in and what all that meant. So I like worked my butt off, and I just like made sure that I passed those classes, and that just set me on fire again to be like, I can do this, but I have to do it well. And I had to make a lot of changes moving forward. Like time management was just not my thing. I had so much FOMO living in a college town where you went to college and all of your friends are still in college, and like they get to go to college night at the church on Tuesday night, and like we have community group on Wednesday night, or let's go to the basketball game or the football game, and like I have to buy those tickets now, and so I have to work for it, and all these things. And like my friends are going out to dinner because it's $2 tacos, or whatever. And like I had to realize like I have class this day and I have to give that up, and telling myself like, no, you're not going to watch the recording, so you have to go, and setting those boundaries with myself. But it was hard because I so badly did not want to miss out on anything. The weekends that I didn't have to go to lab, which is a whole nother thing, like I had to go to lab and still do have to go drive to St. Augustine at least like once, sometimes twice a month, and spend 8 to 5 all day Saturday, 8 to 5 all day Sunday in a classroom. And I have to know my stuff when I get there. Like there's no point in wasting time when we're there, because we only have so much time. So they expect you to know what you're supposed to know when you get there, so you can continue with that material. And I remember like I would drive super late on Thursdays to go see Covey in Albany, which was about halfway there. And like I just wouldn't do schoolwork after that. And I wouldn't do schoolwork on Fridays 9 times out of 10. I would just like spend time with him and then go drive the rest of the way. And I just had to change that. And I would even like tell him that I didn't have schoolwork to do so that he wouldn't make me do it because I knew he would. So, anyways, I had to make those changes, and I'm grateful that I did. I did so much better second term, and obviously, it was the spring semester, so like there's no football, and like there's just not a lot going on in Auburn, Alabama in the springtime as there is in the fall. But I still give myself credit for the changes that I did make and how hard I worked to like make my GPA go up so I wasn't like super scared that I was going to fail out third term or anything like that. And now I'm in term 5, and then I got married after second term. Between term 2 and term 3, Covey and I got married. Between the 2 terms, I had wedding week, honeymoon week, and then we started back. So it was like back to back to back. And I'm so grateful that we had the opportunity to do that and like that the schedules worked out that way. But again, such a new transition because first term, obviously, it's brand new. You don't know what to expect. Second term, you kind of know what to expect, except I had to make changes because I did not do well first term. And then third term, now I have a husband that I live with, and he's also in school, and he's transitioning into all the same things. So, like, trying to find out the right balance and rhythms of that was super difficult, but also, like, so nice because I had somebody to hold me accountable who also had things that they had to do. So that was good. And then last term, term 4 was like so much more smooth sailing. Like we were both still in school, like term 3. We kind of had our, rhythms down a little bit better as a married couple. And then, we had a good break for the holiday. And now we're back in term 5. And we're doing good. We're learning a lot. We're excited. We're starting to talk about field work, which is super exciting. I'm in my last full calendar year of grad school, and it's just crazy to look back, and I'm super grateful that I can like talk about it and just remember all of the things that I went through to get here, and it just makes me so grateful. But now I have to start thinking about, okay, well, what do I want to do after graduation? Like, I have to start figuring out what areas I'm interested in, and the options are so endless with occupational therapy, which is so incredible. And I just don't think that a lot of people know a lot about it, but I'm going to tell you today what occupational therapy is and the areas of interest that I have. So, occupational therapy is looking at somebody from a holistic perspective, looking at them as a whole person and a unique individual, and then getting them back to doing things independently, either how they were before or better than they were before, so that they can live an independent and fulfilling life doing things that bring them joy. So areas that I'm interested in, for example, hands. I said that from the beginning that that's when the Lord told me that I was doing occupational therapy. So if you're a mom and you had a burn on your hand or something and you need help getting that function and feeling back in your hand, we're going to work on things that help you do the things that you could do before. So how can you go grocery shopping? How can you feed your kids? How can you drive your car? How can you hold your book? Or how can you, I don't know, whatever you like to do, like how can we get you back to doing those things? It's more occupational based and it's more individualized to that person. And then I really like working with manual labor people, I guess you could say. So like mechanics and all that stuff. Like I just love the different assessments and the different ways that you can use intervention with those types of people, and those jobs are just so important and helping them be able to get back to that. And then just seeing people have so much joy when they're able to do the things that they probably didn't think they were going to be able to do again after an accident or a diagnosis or anything like that. Like being able to help somebody do that just makes me so pumped. I already kind of talked about the school system and how OTs work in school systems, and I'm in pediatrics now, so I'm sure that my knowledge is going to grow so much this semester about what OTs can do in the school system. So I'm super excited about that. That might make me feel like I don't want to ever do it, but it might also be like, yes, this is absolutely what I'm going to do. The other options are out of the window. So we'll see. And then lastly, I don't even know if this is a thing, but I'm sure I could make it a thing. I would love to be an OT in like architecture, construction, because I think there's so many times that people just don't accommodate for those who have a disability or a deficit when building buildings or designing parks or creating different things. And I just would love to be able to be a part of that discussion and a part of the designing process so that we can make more inclusive, more accessible things and places for all people. For example, like my school, literally my school is OT, PT, speech, nursing, and the front door isn't really accessible for people in a wheelchair. The door opens the wrong way. Like mind blowing stuff that like if you just ask an OT, I promise you they'd be able to tell you and make it a lot easier. And I just would love to be able to be a part of that. I also feel like I love physics. I love, again, I thought I was going to be in engineering. So I feel like that little piece of me is still there. And math and doing those things, I feel like is so fulfilling for me. And so I feel like being an OT in architecture, design, or construction would be so cool to still be able to utilize all of the things that like bring me joy and like that I feel like I'm strong in to be able to make things more inclusive and accessible for all different diagnoses and deficits and disorders. And so, yeah, I feel like this episode was super chill, like very much just like talking about my life and how I got to where I'm at in a certain area of my life, and I really enjoyed that. So I hope y'all did too. Let me know if you did or didn't, and if you did, then let me know if there's another area of my life that you want me to talk about how I got to. I think I hit all the points that I wanted to make. I'm just trusting the Lord's timing and trusting that the Lord is in these conversations that I'm having with myself and you. So, I'm looking forward to future episodes. Let me know if you have any suggestions. I've got a couple things in this fancy smancy notebook that I got, but I also would love to just talk about anything and everything that y'all want to hear about too. So, I think that's going to be it. This is a little bit shorter than the last one, so I hope that's cool with y'all. I always feel like these outros are super longer than they need to be because I just don't know how to end it, so I'm just going to end it. Okay. Bye.